The frigid cold of a desert sunset descended, staining the dunes a bloody red, like a weeping wound. Clara Mae Thompson, a solitary note in the desert's deadly symphony, fought a battle against herself, and the sounds of the wasteland, the wind whistling through cracks in the rocks, the crunch of sand beneath her feet, and above all, the roar of silence, a silence that devoured hope. Stranded with a broken carriage wheel, a meager supply of food, and a swollen belly ready to give birth, she was a symphony of death, a tragic melody no one could hear. Whenever she closed her eyes, the image of Jedediah Kane appeared, cold as winter ice. He wasn't just a domineering father-in-law, but a fanatical obsession with what he called the Kane bloodline, something that had twisted him into a monster. In Jedediah's eyes, Clara Mae wasn't a daughter-in-law, but an outsider, carrying a different bloodline that threatened the pure blood of the Kane family. Caleb was too weak. Jedediah snarled, his dry eyes without a single tear as he stood by his son's newly dug grave. He didn't understand the legacy he carried. But I do. This family bears a great destiny. When he heard Clara Mae was pregnant with twins, Jedediah's expression changed. Not disappointment, but a mixture of fear and rage. A division, he muttered. The prophecy warned of this. They are not a curse, they are a weapon. A weapon that cannot be held by a weak woman like you. Now, as the first contraction tore through her body, Clara Mae finally understood the true meaning of those words. Jedediah didn't just want an heir. He both feared and craved these twins. He abandoned her, not to punish her, but as a cruel calculation. He wanted her to die so he could return, take the children, and turn them into instruments for his insane scheme. Please, she gasped, though no one could hear. Just a little longer. The contractions began at dawn, gentle at first, like the distant rumble of the buffalo herd she once heard when they first crossed the Missouri River. But as the sun climbed higher, the pain became more intense and frequent. Clara had helped birth calves and foals on her father's farm in Pennsylvania, but nothing could have prepared her for this moment. Her body seized up, the pressure unrelenting, and the fear that threatened to swallow her was even greater than the heat. Her hands, once soft from housework, were now calloused and rough. She had spent 3 days trying to fix the carriage wheel with only the few tools left behind when they abandoned her. Every night, she lit a small fire, clinging to the faint hope that someone would see the smoke, that help would come. But only the cries of coyotes answered, their eerie howls, a mockery of her despair. The pain peaked, pushing all other thoughts from her mind. She clung to the side of the carriage, panting. When the pain subsided, she tried to move, to gather what she needed. Clean cloth from a trunk, the last of her water, a knife she had hidden in her boot. She arranged them next to a nest of blankets in the carriage's shadow. The next contraction brought her to her knees. She felt something shift, an undeniable pressure building. Clara positioned herself as best she could, recalling the midwife's instructions from a time that now seemed so long ago. God, she prayed, her voice hoarse in the stillness. If I die here, please save my children. Send someone, anyone. The desert offered no reply. Only the distant cry of a hawk. The sun sank lower, its light casting long shadows across the cracked earth. Heat shimmer mirages danced on the horizon, flickering like ghosts. Time lost all meaning as Clara's world narrowed to breath and pain, pushing and rest. The first baby was born as the sun touched the edge of the world, its cries strong despite the harsh conditions. Clara cleaned the baby with trembling hands, wrapped him in a piece of fabric torn from her petticoat, and placed him in the shadow of the carriage. The second boy was born with more difficulty, the pain tearing through her exhausted body. By the time he was born, the first stars had appeared in the darkened sky. His cries were weaker, his body smaller than his brother's. She held him close. Clara lay down, the two babies nestled against her chest, too exhausted to move further. Blood flowed beneath her, more than normal. She knew what this meant, having witnessed a neighbor's wife die from a difficult birth. The desert would finally claim her, but perhaps the two babies would survive. Her eyes scanned the horizon, where the darkness was quickly swallowing the last of the day's light. And then, another mirage, another trick of her failing vision appeared. That night, under the cold moon, Amidst the distant howl of coyotes, Clara May fought her battle for life. Two tiny beings were born into a world of only sand and rock. She named them Wyatt and Jesse, a final connection to the past. Weak from blood loss, her body losing its warmth, she held her children close, shielding them from the night wind. "I love you," she whispered into their fine hair. And then, the world faded to black. But dawn brought a miracle. Miles away, Kodiak, a Lakota Sioux warrior, ended his 3-day vision quest. His heart had been a wasteland since white soldiers had taken his pregnant wife. He had sought the spirits for an answer, a reason to continue living, and the spirits had replied with the image of an eagle. It soared above him, not flying away but leading the way. He followed it, driven by a blind but powerful faith. The eagle led him to the ruined carriage. The sight before him made his heart clench. A young woman, pale as the moon, lay motionless. Beside her, 2 newborn babies trembled, their lives as fragile as butterfly wings. For a moment, he saw the image of his wife, of the child he never got to hold. He had failed once. He would not fail again. The warrior dismounted a safe distance away, his movements deliberate and unhurried. He spoke a few words in a language Clara didn't understand, his voice low and even. When she didn't react, he switched to broken English. "Injured?" he asked, more of a statement than a question. Clara's laugh was dry, mixed with panic. "Yes," she managed to say. "I'm hurt." He approached slowly, his hands visible, carrying no weapons. His face came into focus, younger than she first thought, with eyes that held no hostility or pity, only careful assessment. "The babies," he said, nodding toward the 2 children. "Newly born?" "Yes," Clara held them tighter. "My sons." He knelt a few feet away, still maintaining a respectful distance. "I am Kodiak," he said, pointing to his chest. "Who would leave a woman and new babies here?" The question was not judgmental, just a practical curiosity. "My husband's family," Clara replied, the words bitter on her tongue. "They didn't want." She couldn't finish the sentence, tears leaving muddy streaks on her cheeks. Kodiak nodded, as if this explained everything. "White men do this," he said simply. "Leave behind what they think has no value." He watched her for a long moment, then stood and went to his horse. He returned with a leather water bag. Clara hesitated for a moment before taking it, drinking in small sips. The water was cool and sweet on her parched lips. "Thank you," she said. Kodiak shook his head. "Keep it," he said. After a moment of silence, he continued. "Night is coming. It will be cold soon. You cannot stay." Fear gripped her heart. "I can't walk. I just gave birth." "I know." He glanced at the blood-stained ground. "But this is not a safe place. Coyotes will come, and the ones who left you might return." Clara knew he was right. The cold mist had already begun to settle, the desert surrendering its warmth to the night at an alarming rate. The babies wouldn't survive the cold, and she was too weak to keep a fire going all night. "What choice do I have?" she asked, her voice heavy with despair. Kodiak considered her question seriously. "I will take you to my tribe," he said. "There is a medicine woman there. She will help." Clara's fear returned. "They won't want me there. Some will not accept," he agreed with a directness, "but the medicine woman, a pony, will help." "Why?" Clara whispered. "Why are you helping me?" Kodiak was silent for a moment, his gaze shifting from her face to the 2 twin boys and back again. "Many moons ago, white soldiers killed my wife," he finally said. "She was with child then." His expression remained calm, but an old pain was visible in his eyes. "No one helped her. I did not arrive in time." He stood up straight. "I will not let another person die when I can help. It is not our way of life." Clara felt tears welling up again, this time from a gratitude so profound it couldn't be expressed in words. She had prepared to die in this barren place, her only hope that someone would find her sons. Now this man, a stranger whose tribe had every reason to hate her, was offering salvation. "How?" she asked, looking at her weakened state, the 2 newborns, and the vast distance that surely lay between them and safety. He knelt down, carefully wrapping the two children in his warm buffalo robe, using his water bag to moisten Clara May's cracked lips with precious drops. With the strength of a man accustomed to hardship, he lifted her onto his horse, walking beside her on foot. As they began their journey out of the desert, Kodiak looked up at the eagle that was still circling above, and he whispered an oath in Lakota. "The cracked lake of my heart will be filled with this new life. The souls of my wife and child will find rest, for I will protect these children as if they were my own flesh and blood." When Clara May awoke, she no longer heard the roar of the desert, but the gentle symphony of life, the crackle of a fire, the murmur of a deep, calm voice, and the rustle of hides. The air smelled of sweet herbs and pine smoke. Soft golden light filtered through the buffalo hide of a teepee, painting dancing shadows on its walls. The pain had subsided, replaced by a feeling of exhaustion but also peace. An elderly woman was sitting nearby, her back straight and her dark eyes holding the wisdom of generations. She stopped grinding herbs and spoke in halting but clear English. "Be still, my daughter. You and your sons are safe. The spirits led my grandson here." Clara May tried to sit up. "My children," she whispered, her voice hoarse. The woman pointed to a cradle board made of willow and lined with rabbit fur. Wyatt and Jesse were sleeping soundly, their breathing, even their small faces, rosy. An immense sense of relief washed over Clara May, and she began to cry. "I am Nuna," the woman introduced herself, "the healer of this tribe." The following days were a slow process of recovery. Nuna applied a healing salve to Clara May's wounds and brewed her herbal teas that brought warmth and strength. Each day, Clara May felt life slowly return, like a dry riverbed watered by the first rains of the season. Nuna's granddaughter Tala became her companion. The young girl with long black braids taught Clara May how to care for her sons with soft Lakota lullabies. However, Clara May could not help but notice the wary looks directed at her. She was an outsider, a white woman. To many in the tribe, her skin color was a symbol of betrayal and lost lives. She heard whispers and saw women pull their children closer. Their fear was as palpable as the desert heat. One evening, a young warrior named Black Eagle openly challenged her presence. He stood before Nuna's tipi, his face etched with anger. "Why do we harbor one of our enemies? She will bring the soldiers here. She will be our destruction." The atmosphere became tense. Clara May held her sons tight, her heart pounding. Just then, Kodiak appeared. He didn't say a word, simply stood in front of the teepee entrance, his form as solid as a rock. He looked at Black Eagle, his gaze not angry, but holding a weight that made the younger man flinch. "She is a mother with no home," Kodiak said, his voice low and clear. "Her children are innocent. Our tribe does not abandon the weak. It is not our way." He turned to the others. "We will not let our fear turn us into the cruel men of our enemies." His words, combined with the respect he commanded as a warrior, calmed the situation. That night, Kodiak came to Clara May's tipi. He brought a piece of roasted deer meat, and they sat across from each other by the small fire. "Thank you," Clara May finally said. Kodiak simply nodded. "My wife, Chimalis, was killed while picking berries. The soldiers found her. They had no reason." He paused, swallowing hard. "I was not there. I swore to the spirits that I would never let an innocent person die alone if I could prevent it." Sensing an unspoken connection through their shared pain, Clara May decided to trust him. She told him everything about Caleb, their love, and Jedediah's cruelty. Then, she pulled out the heirloom Caleb had given her, a small, smooth piece of sandstone with a symbol of 2 eagles circling an 8-pointed star. Kodiak was stunned. He had seen this symbol before, not with his own eyes, but in the sacred stories the elders told. It was a symbol of great power and an ancient prophecy. He immediately led her to Nuna's tipi. In the flickering firelight, Nuna stared at the stone, her eyes alight with astonishment and deep understanding. She asked Kodiak to translate Clara May's story. When the story ended, Nuna held the stone. "This is not a coincidence," she said, her voice solemn, with Kodiak translating her every word. "This is destiny revealing itself. The prophecy says that when hope is just a dying ember, The twin eagles will be born. 2 souls, one carrying the blood of the sun, the white man, and one carrying the blood of the earth, the native people, will appear to restore balance. Nuna looked at the cradle board where Wyatt and Jesse were sleeping. They are not a curse, Clara May. They are hope. But the prophecy also warns that if their power falls into the hands of a greedy heart, they will become a tool of destruction, consuming both worlds. Clara May shivered, a cold truth running down her spine. Jedediah. He knows about this. He doesn't just know, Nuna said, her eyes sharp as daggers. He and his ancestors have hunted this prophecy for generations. He does not want heirs. He wants shackled gods, weapons to fulfill his boundless ambition. Outside, the wind howled through the rocks, sounding like the whispers of ancient spirits. Clara May looked at her 2 tiny sons. They were no longer just newborns. They were at the center of an invisible war, a war between destiny and greed, between healing and destruction. And she, a woman who seemed so weak, was now their only protector. The truth of the prophecy hung in the village air, heavy and ominous like a storm cloud about to break. It explained Jedediah Cain's obsession, but also brought a more immediate danger. He would not give up. The village was no longer a safe place. News from the scouts had confirmed the worst. 3 riders, led by Silas, Jedediah's cruel foreman, had been spotted on the edge of the Badlands. They were tracking them with an alarming skill. Immediately, an emergency meeting of the elders and warriors was called in the chief's lodge. The air was thick with tension. "He knows we are here," Black Eagle, the young warrior, growled. "That white woman is a trap. She was led to us by the spirits," Kodiak countered, his voice calm but powerful. "The prophecy has chosen her and her children. Now, we must choose our own path. Will we be warriors who protect what is sacred, or cowards who run from the darkness?" Chief Blackwood, the old leader with a face etched with wisdom and sorrow, made his decision. "We will not fight here. This land is too exposed. We will move to the Black Hills, to the Valley of Sacred Waters. It is our holy ground, a place where the white man has never set foot." The exodus began that same night. It was not a panicked flight, but an orderly and efficient movement, honed by generations of being forced from their homes. Typists were dismantled in silence. Belongings were packed neatly and tied to travois. Campfires were extinguished, and the ashes scattered to leave no trace. For Clara May, this was a completely new world. She, who was used to the stability of a home, was now learning the ways of a nomadic people. She ached, but did not complain, finding strength from the other women, the old, the pregnant, the ones with babies on their backs, all moving with a silent resilience. Kodiak walked right next to her travois, his hand never leaving the horse that pulled it. He moved silently as a ghost, his eyes constantly sweeping the surrounding ridges and valleys. One evening, when they stopped to rest, Clara May sat with Lena, a young woman with a constant sadness in her eyes. Clara May felt helpless as Jesse cried, but Lena gently took the baby, singing a Lakota lullaby and rocking him to sleep. "I once had a daughter," Lena said softly, sharing her story for the first time. "My husband wouldn't let me find Nuna when she was sick. He said if she wasn't strong enough to survive, she wasn't worthy. She didn't make it." Clara May took Lena's hand. "Here," Lena said, "we do not let any child face the darkness alone, no matter who their father is or where they come from." In that moment, Clara May felt a deep connection. She was not just a refugee who was taken in, but part of a sisterhood, a protective circle woven from loss and strength. On the 3rd night of the journey, Nuna decided it was time to reveal the whole truth. She summoned Clara May, Kodiak, and Chief Blackwood to a small fire, separate from the others. "The prophecy is not just a story about the future," Nuna began. "It originates from a betrayal in the past." She told a story that had been passed down for generations, about Jedediah Cain's ancestor, who had become a blood brother to Kodiak's ancestor, Strongheart. But greed had poisoned his heart. He had stolen a sacred map and led an army here. To protect the valley's secret, Strongheart had led Jedediah's army into a deadly trap. and sacrificed every last one of his men. Jedediah's ancestor survived, but he did not find the power he craved. The only thing he carried away was the stone with the symbol, a piece belonging to Strongheart, as a bitter reminder of his unfinished goal. Silence descended upon the fire. Clara May looked at the stone in her hand, Caleb's heirloom, now a testament to a terrible crime. She looked at Kodiak, who was sitting motionless, his hands clenched into fists. He had not only saved her and her sons, he had saved the descendants of the enemy who killed his ancestors. "This circle must be closed," Chief Blackwood said. "Your arrival and your sons, Clara May, is not a coincidence. It is the chance the spirits have given us to face the ghost of Jedediah Cain, both past and present. Your destiny and our destiny are now one." Clara May looked into the fire, the images of her two sleeping children in her mind. This flight was not just for survival. It had become a pilgrimage, a journey to find the truth and perhaps to seek redemption for a crime she did not commit, but whose legacy was now in her hands. After nearly a week of non-stop travel, a subtle shift occurred. The air grew fresher, carrying the scent of moss and pine sap. The tense silence was replaced by the chirping of birds. They had arrived. Kodiak led the group through a narrow ravine, cleverly concealed by a small waterfall. As they passed through the curtain of water, a breathtaking sight unfolded before Clara May. A lush green valley, enclosed by majestic granite peaks. In the center, numerous small hot springs emitted misty columns of steam, creating an ethereal atmosphere. This was the Valley of Sacred Waters, a holy ground for the tribe. The entire tribe made camp in a soft meadow. For the first time in days, fires were openly lit, and the laughter of children echoed throughout the valley. That evening, Nuna led Clara May to a small rock-sheltered hot spring. "This is the Mother's Spring," she explained. Submerging herself in the warm water, Clara May felt her aches and pains melt away, and for the first time in a long while, she truly relaxed. The next morning, the tribe gathered at the largest spring for the naming ceremony of Wyatt and Jesse. Clara May, in a carefully decorated deerskin dress, held her two sons. Kodiak stood beside her, not as a protector but as a family member. Nuna took Wyatt, held the baby up to the rising sun, and declared, "His name shall be Spotted Hawk, for his spirit comes from the sky. His eyes will have foresight, and he will fly higher than life's storms." The entire tribe repeated his name in unison, a powerful sound that echoed off the cliffs. Next, Nuna held Jesse, cradling him in her arms, her voice softer, "And he shall be Rising Star, for he was born in the darkest night. His light will be hope for the lost, and his presence will guide the way home." The tribe chanted once more, their voices filled with acceptance and love. Clara May held her sons close, tears streaming down her face. These were no longer Wyatt and Jesse, names tied to a painful past. These were Spotted Hawk and Rising Star, names that carried power, heritage, and a promise. In that moment, she knew she had found her home, but the past has a persistent way of finding the present. Just as the ceremony concluded, a scout rode into the valley, his face strained. "3 riders. They found the ravine. They are entering." Silas. He had found them. Panic was quickly replaced by a cold determination. The warriors, led by Kodiak, swiftly moved into position, concealing themselves behind rocks and trees. But Clara May had a different plan. "No," she said to Kodiak, her voice firm. "No blood on this sacred land. This is my fight. Let me face him." Kodiak saw not fear in her eyes, but the strength of a mother protecting her children. He nodded and signaled his warriors to hold their positions. When Silas and his 2 men cautiously entered the central clearing, they found only Clara May standing alone. Kodiak stood behind her, his presence a silent warning. "Mrs. Thompson," Silas called out, "Mr. Cain sent us to look for you everywhere." "Do not call me by that name," Clara May replied, her voice cold and clear. "I am the mother of Spotted Hawk and Rising Star." Silas sneered. "We are here to take you and the Cain children home." "Home? Clara May said, a sarcastic smile on her lips. You came to kidnap the children of a prophecy. She held up the sandstone piece, the sunlight glinting off of it. The legacy of Jedediah Cain. The legacy of betrayal and greed. I know everything, Silas. The self-satisfied expression on Silas's face vanished. Turn back, Clara May commanded, her voice now filled with an authority she never knew she possessed. Tell Jedediah Cain his game is over. Tell him that his ancestors' debt. It is time for this land itself to be paid. As soon as she finished speaking, a strange silence enveloped the valley. The steam from the hot springs seemed to thicken, swirling around the three riders. Their horses began to whinny nervously. From within the mist, dozens of Sioux warriors silently emerged, bows drawn, rifles ready, all aimed at the three intruders. This is your last and only warning, Kodiak said, his voice deep and powerful like a rumble of thunder. This valley does not welcome those who carry the darkness of the past. Leave now, and if you value your lives, never return. Faced with a power far greater than their weapons, the power of a united people in a sacred land, Silas had no choice. He reined in his horse, and, with his two men, they turned and fled the valley like ghosts chased by the light. When they were gone, the warriors lowered their weapons. Clara May let out a sigh of relief, her legs trembling. She had done it. She had faced the past and won. Kodiak walked over to her, placing a hand on her shoulder, a gesture of respect and companionship. The battle was over, at least for today. As the figures of the three riders finally vanished into the mist, the tension that had held the space, stretched taut like a bowstring, finally relaxed. The Sioux warriors did not celebrate with boisterous cheers. Instead, they quietly lowered their weapons and returned to their families. It was a victory of resilience, not aggression. Clara May stood motionless for a long moment, the adrenaline slowly ebbing away, leaving a feeling of emptiness and trembling. She had faced her demons and stood her ground. Kodiak remained by her side, his hand on her shoulder a steadying presence. You did it, he said softly. We did it, she corrected, turning to look at him. Without you and your people, I would just be an anonymous grave in the desert. That night, the air in the valley was no longer heavy with anxiety, but filled with relief and hope. A large bonfire was lit, and people shared food and laughter. Spotted Hawk and Rising Star were passed from one set of arms to another, cuddled and blessed. They were no longer the mixed-race children of an outsider. They were children of the tribe, living symbols of their victory over the darkness. In the midst of the celebration, Chief Blackwood approached Clara May. He sat down beside her, his eyes filled with warmth. Tonight, you did not just speak with your mouth, he said, his voice deep and warm. You spoke with the heart of a Sioux warrior. You proved that blood does not define loyalty, but choice does. This is the only family my sons have, Clara May said, her heart warmed. Chief Blackwood nodded. But this war is not over. Silas will return to Cain with the news. He will come back, perhaps with a larger force. This valley has been exposed. We cannot stay here forever. Clara May had known this. The peace was only temporary. We will travel north, the chief said, his eyes on the distant mountain peaks. There are lands the white man has not yet touched. We will begin a new journey, not to flee, but to seek a permanent home. He looked straight into her eyes. And we want you to come with us. You are a part of us now, Clara May. Always. The offer, spoken with such solemnity and sincerity, brought tears to Clara May's eyes. She no longer had to choose. Her path was clear. It is an honor, she whispered. 3 days later, before dawn, the tribe was ready for their greatest journey. This was not a hurried exodus. It was a migration of hope. Clara May, now strong and confident, prepared her sons herself, checking the travois that Kodiak had securely reinforced. She was no longer the weak woman who needed protecting. She was an active member of the community, a mother ready to do anything to protect her children's future. As the first rays of morning sunlight touched the mountain peaks, the group began to move. Clara May walked beside the travois, and Kodiak walked right next to her, as he always had. They walked in silence for a long while. "Are you afraid?" Kodiak asked, breaking the silence. Clara May looked toward the horizon, where an uncertain future awaited. She looked down at her two sleeping children, at the friends and sisters walking with her, and at the strong, kind man beside her. "No," she answered, and she realized she was telling the truth. "I am no longer afraid." When a person has lost everything, they realize what is truly important. "I have found it here." She looked at him, a genuine smile on her lips. "Thank you, Kodiak, for seeing me when I was almost invisible." Kodiak looked at her, and for the first time Clara May saw a true smile in his eyes, a smile that dispelled the ghosts of the past. "No," he said, "I should thank you, Clara May. You and your sons reminded us that even in the most brutal winter, new life can still take root." They continued to walk, not as rescuer and rescued, but as two companions, two souls who had found healing in one another. Clara May Thompson, mother of Spotted Hawk and Rising Star, was no longer nameless. Her journey home had just truly begun.